You're listening to Unmuted Love. Hi there, I'm C. Ushelman, and with 35 years as a marriage and family therapist and 25 years as a parent of 2 children I brought home from the foster care system, I want to welcome you here to Unmuted Love Podcast, the one place where nothing is off limits to say out loud about parenting children from difficult beginnings.
Stop for a minute, stop and breathe for a minute, long it over your head, try to listen instead, won't you? Think for a minute, who you wanna be for a minute, don't get over your head, you're like everyone else, aren't you?
Sometimes it's real sweet around here, and sometimes it ain't so pretty, because this is 100% Unmuted Love. So let's go.
You'll be just
Hey parents, this is C. Get the help you need to end destructive and chaotic behavior in your home while parenting children from difficult beginnings. I know you need help, and the Love Plus parenting model actually works. I'm inviting you to work with me personally for 6 months in my virtual therapeutic parent program, and I guarantee you results, or 100% of your investment back. How is that for a blue ribbon deal? I'm looking forward to working with you. See you on the inside. Welcome to Unmuted Love. You may or may not know this is Mental Health Awareness Month. I want to take a bit of time to tell you what you already know because likely you're living with it in your own home. And you know the profound importance of the impact of trauma, attachment breaches, abuse, and neglect in early childhood, and how these adverse childhood experiences shape the mental health of children and the adults they become in the future. You know, this is a conversation about the roots of pain, but more importantly, it's about paths to healing and hope. We all need more hope in our lives. In the early years of a child's life, the foundation of their emotional and psychological development is laid down like a foundation of sorts. It's during these years that children should learn to trust, to love, and to connect. Unfortunately, for some children, many of our children from difficult beginnings, these years are marked not by nurturing and care, but by trauma and neglect. The effects of these experiences are not transient. They are deep and lifelong lasting. The concept of adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, helps us understand this better. Research in this field has shown us that traumatic experiences in childhood, such as emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and profound neglect, as well as witnessing abuse or severe discord in the home, disrupt the very core of a child's sense of stability and security. Their internal model of themselves, I often call it their internal working model, becomes negativistic, right? The world becomes skewed toward a powerful negativity bias. And that world includes themselves, their caregivers, close community members, and the world. So it has a very profound ripple effect. When children face such adversities without adequate support or understanding, their worldview shifts. They may see the world as a hostile place, perceive people as threats, and even find relationships challenging, actually even threatening. They might find their relationship with you quite threatening. These early experiences can lead to significant mental health issues as our children grow. Issues like anxiety, depression, and even more severe disorders and disturbances. As our kids grow into adults, the shadows of their childhoods often stretch far into their futures. You know, we often refer to this as the ghost in the nursery. It's kind of a cute title of a book, but it's not a cute book. It's a very hard to read, painful book. Adults with high ACEs scores are more likely to face mental health challenges. They're also at higher risk of substance abuse, some chronic health conditions, immunosuppressant disorders, and social and emotional difficulties. It's not just a challenge for the individual, but for society as a whole. As a matter of fact, this current generation is being called the anxious generation, basically because of COVID-19 having effectively created some form of emotional distress and trauma in every person really on the planet. This is a profound statement, I know, and maybe not everyone would actually agree with me, but the data is the proof. There's an acute rise in anxiety since COVID-19. But anxiety, depression, and suicidality have actually been on the rise in children and adolescents starting in 2009. That's the truth, And frankly, it's a really heavy truth. And I've been really thinking about this. And I know we know it has a lot to do with how our society has changed, how our children are left in front of screens quite often. Now, that latchkey kid has been around for a long time. I was a latchkey kid back in the 70s, 60s, and 70s. So it's not new for sure. But what they have more of is social media. And what we know about social media now is that it has a detrimental effect on children. There are lots of reasons why this is the anxious generation. But listen, there's hope. There's really tremendous hope. Understanding the impact of these adversities is the first step toward helping our kids heal. As parents, we all play a crucial role in the process. You're the frontline defender and advocate for your child. By being informed about the impacts of trauma, you can become more empathetic and effective as a parent. You can face the fact that all children in what we might refer to as the first world are currently impacted in a major way by COVID-19. And all children who've been adopted, or who are in foster care, or who experience abuses, significant losses, and or birth trauma in their lives suffer profoundly. We can see how they suffer by looking at their behavior. I'm going to give a webinar in a few weeks on complex developmental trauma. I hope you can join me for that on Facebook. But I'm going to be giving it on complex trauma so that I can have a bigger audience on what that really is, because that has so many symptoms. You might think I'm reading from a dictionary of mental health nomenclature, right? So children who are from difficult beginnings and children also who come from COVID-19 pandemic shutdown, they may be experiencing trauma. And if they have many traumas, then that would be considered complex trauma. And if the trauma occurred in the very early years, the first few years of life, then they would be considered having complex developmental trauma. So here are just a few symptoms you might recognize in your home right now. So I already mentioned anxiety, school refusal, depression, social phobias, relationship challenges all around them, conflicts, opposition, angry explosiveness, aggression, low self-esteem, fears, mood issues, lying, manipulating, negativistic, sort of thinking about themselves and others, hoarding behaviors, controlling, and on and on and on. It's a lot. And if you're living with it, it's almost too much, right? So you really need some help in understanding how to parent children who might be experiencing some of those symptoms. And the symptoms become really, really multiplied, depending on how many ACEs your child has. So here's some things to seriously consider if you haven't already changed your parenting paradigm 100%. So parents can be the most helpful to their children, really, by fostering a secure, supportive, and nurturing environment at home. I know we all think we're doing that, but are we doing it well enough? Felt safety. That's the safety in the eye of the beholder, right? It's in the eye of the beholder. It's in your child's mind, not in what you think is safe as the parent. Felt safety is the most important thing to build in your child. Children from difficult beginnings need to know and feel they're safe and loved. Consistency and predictability in your actions and responses help build this secure base. It's more than that, of course. But those are the foundations. If you're not parenting therapeutically right now, no matter if your child can be easily identified as from difficult beginnings or simply impacted by the pandemic, then you're missing the boat on being the best healing agent in your child's life if you're using traditional therapies. So therapy itself, frankly, is not the answer. Therapeutic parenting is. And why do I say that? Well, because therapy and medication are tools, but parenting is all-encompassing. You are in your child's life 24/7. You have the greatest impact on your children, and you can either be completely safe and positive and nurturing, or you can be in between, positive, nurturing, and empathic when your child's doing well, but it might be harder for you to be that way when they're not doing well. And if they have complex trauma, often they aren't doing that well. And so it helps to have some kind of therapeutic parenting paradigm so that you know what to do when your child is acting out symptoms from complex trauma. So I'm not saying therapy and medication are not good things. I'm saying they're tools. But it's important for us, parents, to really understand how important we are to healing. You're the healing agent in the invisible wounds of childhood trauma. You, parents, are the healers. That's heavy, I know. A lot of times people really want to believe that therapy is going to work. But if you've had your child for 5 years, you've already probably been to therapy. You maybe have already even tried medication, and some of it has helped, but you still are dealing with complex developmental trauma symptoms in your homes. So you really need to have an understanding of how to therapeutically parent. So I know that some of you will need to reach out for those tools. Therapies such as trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, attachment-based therapy, and family therapy. But don't mistake therapy for the answer. Again, I really implore you not to mistake therapy for the answer. I'm a therapist, and I see people bringing their kids into my office hoping that therapy is going to be the sole thing that changes, turns it around. And I'm always disappointing parents when I say, well, frankly, this isn't really going to do it. It's really you. I can work with you to help you turn this thing around. And that's what I want to share with you. You parents are the people who are going to turn this thing around. A parenting shift from traditional rewards and punishment parenting to therapeutic parenting, it's an investment in the entire life of your child, well into adulthood. If this is something you're unclear about or you need more information about, you can check the show notes here for how to get therapeutic parent training at lovemattersparenting.com. That's a big part of what we do here, so I want you to know that that's available. And it's a really effective program. It's proven. It really helps people move children from suffering from complex developmental trauma symptoms into being therapeutically parented so that they have more opportunity to heal and those behaviors lessen and lessen over time. So remember, parents, this is a healing is a journey. It's even a marathon. It takes time, patience, and resilience on the part of parents to truly see the wellness through into adulthood. There may be setbacks, but each step forward is a step out of the shadow of trauma towards the light of healing. Thank you so much for listening today about the connection between trauma and mental health. I know you have your hands full just figuring out how to be a healing agent in the life of your child or children. If that is what you can do, that is plenty. That is enough. If you can do more, that's a bonus for our communities. Together, let's turn understanding into action and trauma into thriving. That's all for today, parents. Thank you so much again for listening, and I'll meet you next week right here on Unmuted Love.
Stop for a minute. Stop and breathe for a minute. Long it over your head. Try to listen instead, won't you? Think for a minute. Who you wanna be for a minute. Don't get over your head. You're like everyone else, aren't you? You could gain from being a bit nicer. Know when to talk and when to shut your mouth.
The Unmuted Love podcast is hosted by me, C. Eshelman, attachment and trauma specialist at the Attach Place in Sacramento, California. Our podcast producer is the amazing Saya Clark, and our theme song is Nicer by Houses on the Hill, licensed through Epidemic Sound. Thank you for being such loyal listeners here on Unmuted Love. I'll see you all next week.
You'll be just fine.